Hi, my name is Veronica, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation. How did that one do?
That was very good. Do just maybe one or two more, okay? Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? You know, I think no matter how you see this whole situation between Devin Haney and Gary Russell, I think all of us can agree. There's no doubt that Devin Haney has been expressing and showing that he actually wants this fight more than Gary Russell. Even if we all say, well, Gary does want the fight, there's no denying the fact that Devin wants the fight more. I mean, even Gary himself has said on many occasions, he said, oh, Devin definitely wants to fight. I know Devin wants to fight. He said that. Matter of fact, one video he was doing on Instagram where he was talking about beating Devin's ass, in the middle of him talking about beating Devin's ass, he out of nowhere says, I really commend Devin Haney for wanting to take this fight when no one else wanted to take it. And I really give Gary a lot of credit for admitting that. So there's no doubt that the Haneys have been pushing harder for this fight than Gary Russell. But now we find out that even Dazn has been pushing for the Gary Russell fight as well. Now, before I play the clip of Dazn actually responding to Gary Russell's accusations, I want to go ahead and surmise everything as quick as I can for those of you guys who have not been following the development of this exchange between Devin Haney and Gary Russell. So let's just go ahead and start with the whole beef with Terrence Crawford and Gary Russell. So it was reported that Terrence Crawford, he offered Kell Brook $1.5 million to take the fight. Once Gary Russell heard this, he said, oh, I'll take the $1.5 million. You can fight me. Because he said, Kell Brook is not going to take that money, but I'll take it, right? So it's not that much of a surprise that Terrence Crawford, he didn't take that offer, or he didn't take the fight seriously, because he knew going into a fight like that, he would be in a lose-lose situation. They would try to discredit him just like they did when he beat Gamboa. But it would be even worse in this scenario. So Terrence Crawford, he pretty much ignored Gary Russell's offer. And this is when Devin Haney, he asked his dad, can we get the Gary Russell fight for that $1.5 million and we'll just split that $3 million down the middle? That's when Bill, his dad, start trying to push for that fight, right? So the first thing happened, they sent an offer to Gary Russell, the $1.5 million that he said he was willing to fight Terrence Crawford for. Gary Russell, he said, no. If I'm fighting you, I want $2 million. He said it was personal with Terrence Crawford. It's business when it comes to Devin Haney. So then once Gary Russell got a little bit of backlash, people started accusing him of ducking. That's when he retracted. He came back and he said, you know what? Forget it. I'll take the $1.5 million. And I'm going to beat your ass, is what he said to Devin Haney. Now, and at this point, I thought the fight was damn near done. I made videos about it. I made a video saying this is great news. I thought the fight was pretty much done because, you know, usually the hardest roadblock to get over is the money issue. Everything else is usually easy to get past, but usually the money is always the problem. So once Gary Russell agreed to the 1.5, I figured it was a done deal. Then out of nowhere, we hear the reports that Gary Russell, he has a problem with the fact that the contract stipulates that if Gary Russell wins, he would have to fight a couple times on Dazn. So Gary, he had a problem with that stipulation. So what did the Haneys do? They removed that from the contract. They removed that stipulation from the contract, rescinded to Gary Russell, and this is actually when I made a mistake. This is when Devin Haney, he actually said, you know, we're waiting for him. We gave him everything he wanted. You know, we removed the stipulations. He's got the 1.5 that he asked for. We're just waiting for him to sign the contract. So, you know, the whole boxing world is waiting for Gary to sign this contract. I think a day or two or even 3 days goes by, and then out of nowhere, we hear a report, Gary Russell doesn't sign the contract. He's not signing the contract. And why? Because he said, I read the contract or the term sheet, and it says, upon the approval of Matchroom and Dazn, you know, this fight will happen. Basically meaning this fight will not happen if Matchroom and Dazn don't approve the fight. So then Gary, he says, you guys are sending me a blank check. He starts saying Dazn and Matchroom name is not on the term sheet, not on the contract or the pre-contract, and that's why he's not signing it. So then from there, we start hearing Gary and many people saying, oh, you see Dazn, they don't even want the fight. Dazn doesn't even want this fight. That's what everyone starts saying once Gary Russell said this. So now I can go ahead and play this clip since you guys have been caught up. This is Dazn's response to what Gary Russell said. I'm gonna play this clip and give you my closing thoughts. Check it out, guys.
I want to see Gary Russell in tough. I just don't think that it's going to happen, Sergio. The Instagram video that Gary Russell put out there, it didn't make a lot of sense. Russell said, all right, I got an offer sheet from you, but it doesn't say that Matchroom's going to buy it. It doesn't say if Dazn is going to buy it. I can say unequivocally that Matchroom wants Gary Russell versus Devin Haney, and Dazn wants Gary Russell versus Devin Haney. So if you're Gary Russell, the clock is ticking. I think they're leaning towards Haney versus Gamboa right now. If you want that fight, Gary Russell, you've got to go out there and seize it. Accept the terms of the deal and get in the ring with Devin Haney.
You got to seize it and get in the ring with Devin Haney. That was Chris Mannix talking with Sergio Mora. This is the Dazn podcast, right? And as you heard Chris Mannix say, I can unequivocally say that Matchroom and Dazn, they definitely want the fight. And once again, this is coming from a Dazn podcast. It's not coming from a Chris Mannix podcast or a Sergio Mora podcast. It's coming from a Dazn podcast. So guys, now we know without a doubt, Dazn, they have always wanted this fight. But not only have we heard it from this Dazn podcast, we've also heard Eddie Hearn, who has a partnership with Dazn. He's even said that we are targeting Gamboa and Gary Russell. And even in the last video that Gary Russell did on his Instagram, he actually admitted in that video, he said Dazn, they only want the fight for that date. They only want Devin versus Gary Russell or Devin versus Gamboa for November 7th. And Gary is now saying that he can't fight on that date. He said he needs a proper 8-week training camp. So what I don't understand is, why didn't Gary Russell put it in the term sheet that he wants to fight the end of November or the week November 14th or whatever it is, right? That's the whole purpose of a term sheet. So Devin Haney can give Gary his terms and vice versa. Gary can give Devin his terms. And then once they agree to all of the terms, that's when the term sheet turns into a contract, and that's when both fighters sign on. So, the thing I said, Gary Russell, he did not put this in the term sheet as his demand, his terms. He didn't say the fight cannot be on November 7th. It has to be after November 7th. He only said, I'm not fighting on Dazn if I beat Devin Haney. And then once the Haneys removed that stipulation, that's when Gary Russell, he said, well, I don't see on here that it says that Dazn and Matchroom have already bought the fight. And that's where we are today, without a fight between the two. So I think it's, unfortunately, it's almost a foregone conclusion that Gary Russell is going to end up fighting someone else, maybe Fortuna, and Devin Haney is going to end up fighting Gamboa. But if that is the case, then I believe that both Devin Haney and Gary Russell, they should start negotiations right now to fight against each other after they both win their next fight, assuming they win their next fight. Wouldn't you guys agree with that? I mean, because if you really want to see this fight, that's something that all of us should agree on. Is there should be nothing stopping them from fighting against each other if they don't fight against each other on November 7th, which clearly Gary Russell's not going to fight on that date, right? So, like I said, I'm hoping the negotiations continue. The negotiations should continue right now. If they can't get November 7th, then they should start negotiating a new date right now. Let's see how it all plays out. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. Fellas, I've got some great news for you. If you've lost your hair or have a receding hairline, the time has come when you can finally get your hairline back through a process called scalp micropigmentation. So here's how it works. It's a hair tattoo that replicates the look of your hair follicles when you have fully shaved it down. Basically, you will end up with a haircut shape up or an edge up. What they do is they tattoo small dots that look like hair follicles in the areas where you have lost your hair, and then blend it with your existing hair. You can even choose what type of hairline you want, hard shape up or soft and natural finish. And to maintain it, all you gotta do is shave your hair every few days, which is something you already were probably doing anyway. So if you wanna get this hookup for my brothers out there in the UK and Europe, make sure you check out the Scalp Disc on Instagram. And for my brothers out there in the States, make sure you go ahead and contact my man Scalp Carolinas on Instagram. And when you go on their pages, you can see for yourself what these guys look like before. I mean, these guys are literally hair magicians. I've never seen anything like this before, but all I can tell you guys is this is a serious game changer for us men. So make sure you get in contact with Scalp Disc and Scalp Carolinas on Instagram.